tomorrow nationalism. So yeah, right now. And internalize it, then you will always get an opportunity to do the book again. Now, as I said, cause, significance, please understand this very, very clearly. Cause and significance is something which is going to come in the exam. Be it your prelims or in mains, you can see a lot of questions from this area. So when I'll be telling you the theaters, what are called the zones in which 1857 happened, you have to make sure that you don't get caught up in the stories, but I will give you enough detail in that sense. So basically, our first discussion is going to be why did it happen? And thereafter, we also have to understand one more thing, which is that why do we call it the revolt of 1857? So is it basically a revolt, a rebellion? I will discuss with you the difference between the three: revolt, rebellion, mutiny. Why don't we call it the War of Independence? So we have to understand the nature also. We have to understand the cause and significance also. So a lot of questions around it. So if everybody is here, can we begin our discussion for today? Okay, now till this point, we have discussed different aspects: advent of Europeans. Thereafter, we discussed, with that we did decline of Mughal. Then we did the expansion of the British. Once we understood the expansion, we did the consolidation. And on this base, we thereafter understood certain pillars. Those pillars being the three major pillars of rule. First, administrative changes. Then we did the economic. And thereafter, we did the constitutional. Based on all of this, there was one more pillar we were able to create, which was social intervention. Now, the basic point of the matter is that across all of these periods, there is resistance. There is resistance to rule. And now we cover a very important bomb, which is called 1857, which is technically going to fall on this structure and literally for between 1857 to 1859 destroy and shake the British rule in India, British company rule in India. So we need to understand this bomb called 1857. Why did it come? Where did it come from? And basically, we have to understand the significance of what happens thereafter. So I hope you can understand this imagery, that it's basically a literal bomb. It will explode from within the East India Company within India itself, and it will literally destroy control in certain areas for 2 to 3 years. And we need to discuss what caused this bomb to be there. What caused this bomb to be there? So you, I hope, understand the purpose of the first discussion which I'm going to have with you, which is causes. Why did the revolt of 1857 happen? Can we discuss this? We have created a certain structure which is called the Company Raj in India. And now we need to understand that very simply, we have to now see why this bomb is going to explode. So when we talk about causes, and please pay attention here, there are a lot of questions which come in the examination, both prelims and both mains, from causes itself. This is the most important discussion out of anything and everything we do today. So when we talk about causes, people tend to only talk about immediate causes. However, there are two types of causes here. One are called long-term or systemic causes, and the other would be immediate triggers. And when we talk about long term, there is political, economic, social, administrative, and psychological and historical. Whilst when we talk about immediate triggers, you have Awadh annexation, military and grease cartilage. Now, basically, we have to systematically cover this. So let us now begin our first for today, which is political causes. Political causes. Can we discuss them? Political? Perfect, very good. Now, when we talk about political causes, there are certain causes inbuilt into it, which is that, and see, what we are going to do is everything is written in the PPT. I want you to understand everything first, and then we can go to the PPT. So when we talk about political causes, there is one straightforward thing, which is displacement of the existing rulers, either via direct conquest, in which you have Marathas, Mysore, Carnatic, Sikhs, Bengal, and basically this will create frustration and anger. While on the other hand, there was one more way in which they displaced the existing leaders or rulers, which is via policy of Raj, in which we have two, which is subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse. Very good. Now, what is the subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse? I will repeat myself again. Via subsidiary alliance, they offer the army but bankrupt the state and annex the territory. So we saw standard thing. If there is a ruler, he has to disband his own army. The British will station an army there. You have to maintain the army, both internal and external matters are now controlled by the British, and you don't have your own army to defend you. And if you default on the payment for the way in which the army has to be maintained, the British take a part of your territory as payment. And by this, slowly but surely, they were able to take most of the states they went into subsidiary alliance with. Subsidiary alliance, anybody has any issue? No issue. Very good. Very good. Now, simple for anybody who has forgotten, simple to simple, 4 major conditions. The concept that we will give you the service, we will give you the army, station the army, help you in war, you pay for it, you maintain it, you pay salaries, you do everything. However, if you default, we take your territory because you default on payment and maintenance. Internal, external relations will be controlled by the British, and basically British has to be accepted as paramount power. British has to be accepted as paramount power. We have discussed the concept of subsidiary alliance when we were discussing the consolidation of the Raj. And the basic point is, it was used very simply as a tool of annexation. It was tool of annexation. You remove your army so you cannot defend. Anybody who does not remember, you remove your army so you cannot defend yourself. Thereafter, you also do one thing, which is that you accept the British as the paramount power. All other Europeans need to be removed. Now, when you're using the army of the British, they control internal, external relations both. And if the major clause which actually was problematic was, you pay the salary, you pay the maintenance, you pay everything. But if you're not able to pay it, the British are going to take a part of your territory as penalty or payment. Bit by bit, like a termite, they ate up all the land, and therefore subsidiary alliance was the first tool of annexation. Is this clear? I assume that you already know this, but I'm still repeating it. Now, there was another way in which they intervened, and the other way to intervene was basically called the doctrine of lapse. Under the doctrine of lapse, if there is no biological son, then annexation of territory. So adopted son will not be accepted as the next ruler, or the natural heir to the throne. Now, basically, if you look at it, these three processes, between 18, rather we not say even 18, between 1760s, 40s and 60s, and thereafter by 1830s, had displaced most of the rulers. And therefore, if you are displaced, there is anger and frustration. So the first is very simply anger and frustration. Even when the doctrine of lapse will be applied or subsidiary alliance will be used, there will be sometimes denial of what we call as allowances, denial of what we call as titles. The British find reasons to humiliate the princes. And what does it in turn create? It all creates only one thing, which is which is anger, frustration, anger, frustration, anger, and frustration. So there is a lot of anger, frustration, which is building up, building up, building up, building up. 100 years of either direct conquest or indirect conquest, either subsidiary alliance or doctrine of lapse, or you humiliate if you're able to survive, hook or crook. The British finds a way to annex you. The British finds a way to annex you. So in the literal bomb called 1857, in the literal bomb called 1857, the first layer of dynamite, comes from the concept of political causes, and these political causes very simply are anger, frustration, displacement, and humiliation. Basically, it is not a joke, or it's not a coincidence that these people will be ready to take leadership for 1857. Is political reasons clear? Everybody has to consent, then I move forward. There should be no iota of doubt. We've been doing this for a very long time now. The basic point is, be it the rule or the policies of rule, subsidiary alliance or doctrine of lapse, be it direct conquest, be it humiliation, be it anger, frustration, the basic point is politically there is a major issue with regards to how the Indian rulers were going to become extremely frustrated, and they will actually be very, very angered. So as you can see, everything which I've done with you has a purpose here, because see, you understand this concept automatically. We have literally demonstrated to you. Now, then let's move to the most obvious one, and the one which you already know in a lot of detail, which is economic. And here we are not in a way very shocked that you have land revenue settlements. That in turn leads to forced commercialization. That in turn leads to deindustrialization. That in turn leads to drain of wealth. And that only has one consequence, and the worst of all of them, famines. So if you look at it, the basic point of the matter is very simple. The point is that land revenue settlements, they create what? No, not create, we can say they create pressure on the rural machinery over assessment, and basically the only impact of this is what we call as peasant distress, landlessness, poverty. This in turn leads to them to shift to cash crops, which the British, I'm doing that, Vijay, listen to me, which the British wanted for world trade and home demand. And basically, if there will be shift to cash crops. Weavers will cease to be agriculturalists, and the weavers will not be able to compete with machine made cheap cloth of England, and therefore money was going out of India in the form of home charges, which is that we literally paid for our colonization, commodities, investments, the concept of dividend, and store purchase. I hope you are able to revise with me. We've done everything for store purchases, and all of this will lead to famines, which is acute shortage of grains, as cash crop production will reduce grain production. And if this was not enough, lakhs of people will perish, or I'll rather say will die of hunger. Dividend is nothing but the fact that anything which was given to the shareholder was Indian income. So if you look at this, this is an interconnected way of what we call as colonial exploitation. And what is the cumulative impact of all of this? Is there any issue with regards to this? There is land revenue settlement is permanent Rayatwari Mahalwari. There should be nothing. We've discussed it again in quite a lot of detail. Very good. Great. You all have the memory of that. Weavers cease to be agriculturists because they don't have the access to agriculture because of the land revenue settlement itself. Now, the cumulative impact of all of economic policies is going to be what? Peasant store purchases, they bought every stationery from India, from England. That is also, peasant was under distress and anger, displacement, and the problems of hunger all will make the rural countryside extremely poverty stricken, and again frustration is rising. Any issue in this understanding, that basically frustration will rise. There's no other option. There's this basic concept of higher and higher exploitation. So let's then add to our story a major part of the explosive, which is basically economic exploitation. And if you bring these two things, this is a bomb. I'm putting RDX into it. Half of it is there. The political causes have been put in and the economic causes have been put in. Now, basic point is that add economic and political, the cumulative impact is very simple. Political plus economic rulers are frustrated plus people are frustrated. Can we agree to these two things? Then I go to the social, which is the most important and the most interesting out of all of this. Great. Now when we move to social, now comes the more interesting part of the story. Now comes the more interesting part of the story, that basically there is a major anxiety which was developing in India. There was a major anxiety developing in India, and that was coming from the social aspect. So let us understand the social. And here I'll introduce 2-3 things to you. So please pay attention. First and foremost is very simply British intervention into the rural, or rather we'll say intervention in the rural and urban spaces of India created a new social dynamism, which means that basically zamindars, moneylenders, rural elites, and new social classes were emerging. That basically the British somehow exaggerated the role of these important personalities or important social classes while creating new and displacing the old. So for example, the peasant, the weaver, the laborer, all had been relegated, or what we can say, laborer were suffering whilst these were enjoying colonialism. So some are suffering, some are enjoying colonialism, and this becomes the inequality of India. That who would want British rule to be extended and not end? Who would want? Peasant, weaver, laborer, or zamindar, moneylender? Dynamism means new type of concept. Now, the simple point here is that they want the colonial rule to extend, while they want suffering to end and colonialism to go away. So they want to preserve, and please remember this type. Preserve colonialism, and they want to challenge colonialism. When I discussed resistance to Raj with you, did I say that there was a zamindar revolt or a moneylenders revolt or a rural elite revolt? Yes or no? No, rural elites mean wealthy people in the rural countryside. No, what we saw was what? We saw peasant revolt. We saw tribal revolt. We saw people who were affected by the things trying to revolt. So now in India, they have basically created a wedge. They have created a division between the Indian society. Some want to preserve, while others want to destroy. Now, this is going to be very important when I'll be talking about how the revolt of 1857 unfolded in India. But as of right now, what I want you to understand is the anxiety related to something more. Are we clear about the first point? Because this is going to be, and you can already preempt what is going to happen. This is going to be the standard story that people will stop the revolt of 1857 and some people will spread the revolt of 1857. Some people will stop it, some people will spread. Who is going to stop? You tell me. Who is going to stop? Very good. Which is that the zamindar, the money lender, the rural elites are going to be like speed breakers. They will try to stop 1857, whilst the peasant, the weaver, the laborer, the sipahi is going to be the one who will lead the. So we are able to again understand that basically the rural and the economic, or the social and the economic, are internally connected to each other, because the impact of economic policy is going to be varied, and for some the colonialism was going to be the best time of their life, while on the other side of the story it is going to be the worst. But this is also not that significant. What is more significant is anxiety about conversion and Christianity. Now please, this is the new section I am going to introduce to you. Can I now talk about this very important aspect? Yes, social will always be a part of economic. Very good. Now, when we talk about the social, and specifically anxiety about Christianity and conversion, under 2A, what we see is that there are two things happening together. First is the activities of the Christian missionaries in India, and the second is socio-religious reform by the British. So basically, Christian missionaries will spread Christianity, convert people to new faith and religion. At the same point of time, they will critique the Indian society, and the British, in a very limited sense, but for sure, in limited sense, but will intervene into social matters. And basically, if you add these two, you get a fear of conversion to Christianity. Now, basically, rising tension that the British will use force to convert. Though the British does not have the capacity, though the British does not even have the plan, the British have nothing. But if you woke up an Indian in 1855 and shook him, he would just say, "No, don't convert me to Christianity." That was the level of anxiety that basically they were holding, that be it night and day, be it morning, be it any other form of congregation, they are just so fearful that, see, they have started to enter into our social customs. They are now banning infanticide. They are now banning sati. They are now trying to change our society. And look at the missionary. He is going around telling that we are the worst form of civilization. We are the worst that can be. And they are converting people. Basically, the way they are critiquing or criticizing, the way they are critiquing the Indian society, the way they are creating a picture that Indian society is useless, that it is the worst of all civilizations. There is now a fear of Christianity and a fact that a missionary is going to come and convert them. And are going to convert them. Are you getting my point? New faith. That basically, though the British have no plan, there is no master plan. There was no plan to convert anybody at a mass scale. So even though no master plan to convert people, why would the British not convert the people? Why would the British not convert the people? Why is the East India Company, why is the East India Company not very interested in converting? Very good. Basically, they were here for money. They don't care if you are a Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, or Christian, or anybody. You give the money. You just give us the money. Does not matter who you are. We want money. So the British did not care. It would take a lot of resources, a lot of power to do that also. So though there is no master plan to convert people, there is a rising assumption of conversion. Now, can I add to this one point, and people will totally think that something is going to happen. So their interest is to loot money. They don't care about the religion of the people. As it is, thieves have no religion. Looters have no religion. They just want money. That is the basic point. Is this slide clear? Because if it is clear, then I add one element to this. I want everybody's assertion. And I will interconnect all of the points to later. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now, if this is clear, to the rising fear of conversion and the missionary activities. Now in 1850, the British will introduce an act. In 1850, the British will introduce an act which is called, does anybody know the name of that act? Lex Loci Act. The Lex Loci Act, person called Lex Loci introduced it, so it's called Lex Loci Act. Now what does the Lex Loci Act say? Can I discuss the Lex Loci Act with you? Basically, this will technically make everybody clear that something is going to happen. Now, basically, there's a father A, he's the father, and he had 4 sons, B, C, D, E. Now, before Lex Loci, if the father will be Hindu, it is assumed that all of them are Hindu. That is a given. Father is Hindu, so all of them is Hindu. However, E felt that within Hinduistic fold, he is not getting the respect. His father does not respect him. And a missionary is able to convince him to convert. He converts to Christianity. or any other religion, now before Lex Loci, if the same person had, for example, 40 acres of land, if the father died, there would be exactly 4 B, C, D and E, Batwara, which is division. Each of them would get 10 acre. Yes. But now what people were doing is that between 1800 and 1850, as soon as the son would convert, he was removed from the family. Therefore, E would lose his share in inheritance. बेदखल कर दिया उसको. You remove him, and basically now there will be only 3 shares, not 4. Now would people actually want to convert to Christianity if this is going to happen, even if they wanted to? No, because it becomes a problem. You lose your family, you lose your land, you lose everything. Land is an important resource. Now you automatically can guess what Lex Loci did. Lex Loci Act said, on conversion to a different religion, son will not lose the inheritance of his father, and he is still entitled for father's inheritance. Basically, now the British debarred this act itself, this whole concept itself, that after Lex Loci, E will not lose and A has to give land to E. A will have to give land to E. Religious Disabilities Act, as it is called, Lex Loci Act very popularly. The simple point of the matter is, now you see, would you want to convert to Christianity? Would you want to convert to Christianity after Lex Loci? Yes, you would, because nothing really changes. You can now comfortably convert to Christianity. You don't lose your land. But now tell me, a person sitting in the rural countryside, watching this drama like this, what is going to go through his mind? Through his mind, though there's no master plan, this would seem as a plan. The Christian missionary came. He said, you are useless. Convert your religion. I would have bedakhaled my father or my son. However, now he's literally making me give him land. So there is some plan. We Indians, as it is, have very major trust issues with people. So now there's a major, so the people, you would have seen how people sit in the rural countryside, sitting under the peepal tree. People are thinking, what is this happening? This somebody called Lex Loci has come through, and Lex Loci is saying that I have to give land to my son even if it is a Christian. So something is up. Literally, golmaal hai bhai, sab golmaal hai. Something is up. Literally something is up. Though the British actually have nothing. The British didn't care. But this comes at a time when the fear of conversion is rising. The fear of conversion is rising. Now, there could not be a worse time to introduce something like this. There could not be a time to introduce something like this, because basically something is happening. Now, can you hold on to this information with me? Can you hold on to this information with me? Because then I will show you how this social is going to manifest within the army. So, very simply, in our bomb, one major RDX which is filled in the mind of the people is basically the social, which is basically nothing. Yuvraj, basic point is people develop a fear of Christianity and the missionary activities start to develop frustration and fear. Lex Loci in a way confirms their fear. So if I add all of these together, political plus economic plus social, then what I get is basically rulers are displaced, peasants are under distress, people are dying of hunger, and rural countryside has changed. Rising suspicion towards English motive in India. Christianity is a source of fear. And now the soldier, rather I'll use the word which we should use, the Sipahi in the army embodies all of these frustrations and fears. Now you get it why I chose the Sipahi as the actor. The Sipahi does not exist in isolation. His ruler has been replaced. His ruler was displaced. His brother lost land. His father had to give land to converted son. His society has been demeaned and critiqued. He is under pressure of conversion. Now do you get why the Sipahi is the main actor of our story? He embodies, British did not want to convert. Not even one document used to say convert. They didn't care. Proper looters, they only wanted money. Sipahi is a soldier in the army. He has his own issues. But I'm telling you what the Sipahi represents. He represents in himself all these issues at this point of time. So is this set of causes making sense? I'm trying to create a picture that if I brought a Sipahi and asked him to give an interview right now to you, he would in this way actually exhibit the following characteristics. He would say that my ruler was removed, my brother lost land, my society has been demeaned, I live in the fear that the British will convert me, and my father did not want to give anything to his son who had converted to, and as a brother he would like his father not to also give. The basic point is the British activities are now creating suspicion. One thing I want to clearly, very, very simple say, there is no plan for conversion. The British did not care about conversion. There was no master plan for conversion. Stop being a 1857 rural countryside man or woman. There was nothing in there in the larger story which actually suggested this to us. Don't start to absorb these things. Simple point is that the Sipahi or the person who is now going to rebel, he represents long-term systemic causes. And can you tell me what is the reason for all of this? What is the reason for all of this? What is the reason for all of this? Yes, basically colonialism is the root cause. Colonialism is the root cause. So simple. Politically, rulers are displaced. Subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, direct conquest is used as a form of displacing the rulers either way. The economic impacts everybody, total rural countryside change, peasant under distress, landlessness, poverty, whatever you call it, exists. And then because of the social activities, some want to preserve, and the rising activities of the missionaries, the rising socio-cultural issues, the socio-religious reform, and the fear of conversion, plus the last nail in the coffin, which is Lex Loci Act, in turn, basically created the context in which now there was a certain frustration and fear which is going to be there. How impacted rulers displaced? I came and took your land. Aren't you displaced? Simple point of the matter is that there is a basically, remember, there's a rising understanding which is there, that there is something going on. Political, economic, and social. Is it clear? How did rural countryside change? Rural countryside changed because zamindars and moneylenders did not exist in such big quantities. They have now become so important. In Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, it wasn't that. So there is systemic issues. These are called systemic. Basically, this is the gist of whatever we've done till this point. This is the gist of whatever we've done till this point. That rulers are angry because they're displaced. The rulers don't want the British to further annex. Annexed rulers are going to not be happy because they were rulers and now they're useless. The peasant itself is the one who is getting exploited. And if that was not enough, there is a now understanding getting created that Christianity is being pushed, and Lex Loci Act, which is an act just to facilitate the missionary activity in India, which has no conversion concept with this, which is not connected to mass conversion, will now get linked up with the larger fears of colonialism. Are these 3 points clear? Then I add 2 more and move to immediate causes. Yes. Now there were 2 things more which were happening. 2 things more which were happening. We don't need to technically be a rocket scientist to know that administratively, The British are corrupt, misgovernance, misrule. But the most important point is, they are racially conscious and they use violence quite a lot. Now, please again pay attention. Which ruler Indian paid by Britishers don't want colonialism? All rulers don't want colonialism because it is their land which has been taken away. Now, please understand this. I'm coming to this. What does racially conscious mean? Racially conscious means very, very clearly, white is superior, brown is inferior. Brown is inferior. Simple. The color of our skin is a marker of our inferiority. Discrimination based on racism. Simple point. White is superior, brown is inferior, is something which they will always have. That simply they are going to discriminate us at all points. But what is more problematic is, you tell me one thing. Were the British ruling in India because we consented them to do it? Consented. That yes, please come rule with us. Or rule us. Yes, come rule us. No. No justification or consent for rule. What they used was violence. Violence at all levels. Violence against men, violence at the administrative table, violence when it comes to peasants, violence when it comes to planters, violence when it came to rebellions, violence when it came to suppressing the rebellions. The British only know one thing: use violence to destroy the ruler, the resistance, or anything which stops them from going forward. So administratively, it's not that they are ruling. That, see, they are given an opportunity to enter. But once they enter, they don't rule through consent. I have consented the fact that my MP will go and sit in the parliament, so I have consented. It is representative democracy. Can we say that British represented India, or was it representative government? No, it wasn't. So if they saw that somebody was not actually ruling or not allowing them to rule, violence was used. Violence to make you accept the land deed, violence to make you accept the weaving laws, be it the Dadni, be it the Rayati, be it the Nij, anywhere, everywhere, British, if they got a chance, they used to beat up. So there is a everyday form of racial violence. Everyday form of racial violence. That if you don't listen to me, you will get the stick. I don't need to tell you how many movies you've seen. Did the British say, no, please help me? No, please give me excessive revenue? They use violence. And I'm going to emphasize on this aspect of violence because now 1857, the Sipahi and the peasant will say, I will do violence. I will do violence. And that is why 1857 is considered in Indian history the most violent of violent moments and events in Indian history. Most violent. Women, children, white, black, brown, did not matter, were slaughtered literally. And I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you the story. The Sipahis are Indians who work in the British Army, and these Sipahis are the ones who will say, enough of your violence, you beating me up every time I ask you a question. Now I will do violence with you. Please, I'm using the word Sipahi. First time I'm using a Indian term, soldier. Now better, soldier. So you are now acting like what Sipahi, which Sipahi? Don't be an English. Sipahi, soldier, Sipoy, whatever you want to call them, simply are the ones who will now say enough of your violence. Can you again hold on to this idea with me? Because then I will show how it will manifest itself. So one idea we are holding on is basically the fact that there is conversion fear, and the second fear is that the second aspect is the British do violence every day in, day out, day in, day out. But there was a major shift, and this is called psychological factors. The soldiers coming from, meaning Indians were the ones who had entered the service of the British Army. I will discuss that. I am coming to the military. They belong to different parts of the India. Vellore mutiny, when it happened, the Sipahi was what? The Sipahi was Indian. So the British don't they rule through us only. So Sipahi is Indian. Now, what are the psychological? Everybody is following me till this point because I'm trying to link all these things together. I will give you the gist in the end. Don't worry. I'm trying to link all of these things together. Now, the psychological factors is going to be that the British will get defeated in some moments. For example, the Santhals will defeat the British in a battle. Thereafter, in the Sikh wars, small battles were won. Were won. In the Afghan wars, British not able to defeat the Afghan tribes. You have instances, for example, the first Maratha wars, the first Mysore wars. The basic point is all of this was now proving British and we will then reinforce everything again. Done? Everyone, please, you have to tell me this. Okay, perfect. So what is the time? 6:48. We come back at 7. And when we come back, we discuss now the theaters. What happened in Delhi, what happened in Kanpur, what happened in Jhansi, what happened in Jagdishpur, what happened in what we call as Lucknow. We will discuss now the theaters. Forward. So I don't have to relive it with that of 18. But now via the PPT. So what are the causes of the revolt of 1857? And very simply, we divide it into these following categories: economic, political, administrative, social, outside events, and military causes. When we talk about the economic, there's this whole concept: taxation, commercialization, land revenue, foreign policy, deindustrialization, unemployment, destruction of traditional economic fabric. Simple point is, economy has been destroyed, and the simple point is that the people are under distress. Now, political, we know that expansion happens under direct conquest, but the subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse, along with the violence and racism which is used by the British, are all connected to make the rulers felt displaced. But at the same point of time, they also are humiliated. And if you want to see the instances of humiliation, Dalhousie had refused a lot of the rulers or ex-rulers who were entitled for pensions. They will not receive it. For example, the title of Nawab of Carnatic, Surat Raja of Tanjore, were to be cancelled. The ex-Peshwa Bajirao II, Dalhousie refused to extend his pay and pension to his son, Nana Sahib, who is going to become a very important actor. When Bahadur Shah Zafar's eldest son, Prince Fakhruddin, dies in 1856, Bahadur Shah's conditional, what we call as transfer of power to his sons, was now under question with regards to Dalhousie. So if Bahadur Shah's death was to happen, the Mughal rule could have ended under Canning's understanding that after Bahadur Shah's death, Mughal rule or Mughals will rule or lose their title of king, ancestral Mughal palaces. So if you look at it, Dalhousie, Canning being the one who was there in when the revolt happened itself, the British found reasons to make sure that the British were the paramount power and assert their identity. Now, if we move on to administrative, there is rampant corruption, misgovernance, a judicial system which is complex and confusing, and all high appointments, the Indians are excluded from it. Indians are excluded from it. So if you look at political, economic, or administrative, I hope all of this is just revision for you. We've already discussed all of this. The simple point of the matter is they all get connected in rising frustration, rising problematic understanding of rule, and the people are now getting sick and tired of the way the British are ruling India. The socio-religious becomes even more interesting because when the threat of conversion comes, the Religious Disabilities Act, or what we call as Lex Loci Act, modified Hindu custom to change the fact that The change of religion could not debar son from inheriting property of his father. There were rumors that the English were conspiring to convert Indians to Christianity. When sati will be abolished, that will be seen as a moment of the British entering into the sphere of social. The policy of taxation of religious schools, specifically madrasas and gurukuls, both have to pay a lot of tax, which is going to anguish the British, the Muslims and the Hindus both. And racial discrimination and the way they critiqued us, all were adding to the fear of conversion and the fear of forceful conversion in that sense. Now, the outside events showed to us that there is a psychological repercussion to the fact that, be it the first Afghan war, be it the Punjab wars, in which there were certain reverses in which British were going back, be it Santhal rebellion or be it the Crimean War. Crimean War is basically a war which happens between Russia versus France and Britain, in which there were certain spaces in which Britain had to retreat. Simple point of the matter is that now people could feel that the British can be defeated. Thereafter, we already know that there's a long tradition of revolts against injustice in India. And basically all of them represent a moment in which we were resisting British rule. But what all of them lacked was vision and what we call as connections, or the fact that they were only targeting parts of the branch of the empire or the rule itself, not the rule. The culmination point of all this is 1857. Now, when we move to the military, initially there's a homogeneous structure in the British Army, minimal British presence, high caste character, recruitment all from Awadh itself. Dalhousie believed that the Bengal Army was a great brotherhood in which members felt united together. And the service in the army was hereditary. So before 1830s, the army was a very good source of employment, But now things will start to change here. As there will be more and more General Service Enlistment Act of 1856, it will try to introduce soldiers to overseas work and forbade soldiers to wear caste and sectarian marks, beards and turbans. And the fact that the British will now start to have chaplains. Chaplains are Christian missionary based helpers in army. Modern education was a breakwater. They did not support the movement. So basically there was again an angle that the soldiers, the European officers were introducing Christian missionary based helpers in the army. Religious grievances were rising. And caste privileges were being taken away. First maintained a high caste character. The Brahmins, Bhumihars and the Rajputs were there. Dietary and travel restrictions associated with caste was respected under Hastings. Why would Hastings respect this? Francis, forget what that person has said. Very good, Orientalist. By 1820s, army reforms are happening and universalization of army culture curtailed caste privileges. And thereafter, there will be friction within the army itself, which is that overseas employment, salary discrimination, refusal to pay allowance or what is called bhatta for foreign service, considered always inferior. Post Office Act will increase cost of sending letters. Religious identity was in crisis. Regular humiliation and peasant in uniform. All these things were now making the military the right space for the revolt. The last or the two immediate causes are going to be the grease cartridge, which is going to be introduced in the army, and the cartridge itself was made out of cow and pig fat as a form of a cost saving measure. This will be unacceptable to the soldier. And once the annexation of Awadh will happen in 1857, close to 75,000 what we call as army men were from Awadh. Regional patriotism will rise. The Bengal soldiers were peasant in uniform. High taxation were now going to affect their families. The Talukdars will lose their estates, and they were the major proponents of this revolt in Awadh itself. All of this will create panic. The use of fat is that the cover is made out of it. You press and roll the fat. So basically, all this leads to the beginning and the spread. Now, is the story clear? We've now done it 3 times. Everybody is with me? No issues at all? I've written everything in the PPT. I've read it out to you also. Okay, now what we need to discuss is something in which questions are rare, but is relevant for your understanding. Foreign allowance means that if you go to foreign, you get some extra money which they were not given only. For your purpose, I have already made the most obvious question which comes in the prelims examination. Place and leader, I have put it into a box. So you don't have to make it. Who are the leaders in which theater is something I put it into a box. So you don't need to worry. This you have to learn. This not that much, but the leaders you have to. Can you do that? I'll discuss each one of them. I'll talk you why I call them theaters. I'll tell you why they call them theaters, but you can do this. Great. Now let me then discuss how this revolt actually began and what it was. Can I do the part which is interesting but is not relevant to the examination? Okay. So you all know the story of Mangal Pandey. and Bahadur Zafar had fled to Humayun's tomb. They will be followed and captured by General Hudson. All royal princes will be killed. King was exiled to Rangoon, where he will die in 1862. 12th May 1857, Delhi was sieged by the rebels. Bakht Khan, who had rebelled in Bareilly, will come and join in Delhi, and he will be made into the commander-in-chief of army. These dates are not important. And it is Zeenat Mahal and her pursuit to get her son to be the commander-in-chief, which is technically what is going to lead to the downfall. Now, in Rohilkhand, this is the second theater which we do. Now, I'm just giving you the facts. I hope you understand the purpose of the discussion. Now, I'm just giving you the theaters, who is the leader, what happened. That's it. My major discussion with you is basically now done. We all understand theoretically what is the revolt of 1857. That was the basic purpose of the past 1.5 hours. Are we all on the same page with regards to this? What I am giving you is a very important understanding with regards to understanding it in a larger context. Azamgarh proclamation is just Bahadur Shah Zafar trying to get support of the people via giving them concessions. That's it. Now, in Rohilkhand, Khan Bahadur Khan will be the one who will revolt. He will put a very strong fight against Campbell. However, with initial success, Khan Bahadur Khan will flee to Nepal, and he will be brought back to India and then hanged in Dhaka. So the standard story is same. Everywhere you will see the same story. Then Lucknow, which is Wajid Ali Shah was the Nawab of Awadh. He was exiled to Calcutta under doctrine of lapse and subsidiary alliance, maladministration. So his wife Begum Hazrat Mahal will take up the power, and her 11-year-old son. The revolt will break out close to 1.5 months after Delhi. Henry Lawrence will be the one who was the British resident, and close to 500 to 600 Europeans will die here. She will kill Henry Lawrence, and Henry Havelock and Outram will be the one who will come and try to take Lucknow, but they will not have success. It is only in November of 1857 that Campbell will be the one who will turn up with the Gorkha regiment, and he will recapture the March of 1858, the Lucknow sector, and rebels will be driven out into Nepal, where the Gorkha regiment will again pursue them. Now, you asked me why it is also not a revolt, it's not a war of independence. Gorkha regiment is also native, Punjab regiment is also native, Madras regiment is also native. Are we not fighting with each other? Are we not fighting with each other? If Delhi is recovered by the DFF, then technically a native army is recovering Delhi for them. And that is something which will be there, which will move out of the understanding of the army, as we will see in 1945-46, that the army will say that we will not serve the British. So there is no concept of larger nationalism here. Now, Rani Lakshmibai Jhansi, she was born as Manikarna Tambe in a Marathi Brahmin family. Her father, Peshwa Bajirao, worked with Peshwa Bajirao II at Bithur. He childhood friend, Tantya Tope, married to Gangadhar Rao Nevalkar of Jhansi, and he renamed her as Lakshmibai. Jhansi was a Maratha basically a Maratha ruled princely state, a smaller sector within the Marathas, Bundelkhand sector. Her natural born son Damodar Rao will die 4 months after birth, and she will adopt a child, Anand Rao. When Gangadhar Rao will die in 1853, Jhansi was annexed under the doctrine of lapse, and she therefore will say, Meri Jhansi nahi dungi, I will not give up my Jhansi, and she will now start to struggle against the British. With regards to Jhansi itself, With regards to Jhansi itself, in June of 1858, the troops will revolt at Jhansi. Nana Sahib will send, along with Tatya Tope, 20,000 men to help Rani Lakshmibai. They will technically together capture Gwalior, but they will not be able to save Jhansi from Sir Hugh Rose. Rose was the person who recovered Jhansi back. Tatya Tope will thereafter go into the forest and pursue guerrilla warfare, which is attacking surprise attacks. But his own friend Man Singh will betray him, and later he will be captured. On 3rd April 1858, Sir Hugh Rose will capture Jhansi. She will escape to Kalpi when Tatya Tope will join her, but Kanpur will also be lost in the background. Rani Lakshmibai will die fighting bravely in this battle to capture Jhansi back. And the story remains the same in all the theatres. 2 to 3 months of control, and thereafter the British coming back. Then you have Shahmal, a very important personality with regards to the Jats and Gujars, this whole Haryana sector, 1857. He was the one who actually helped the Meerut Sipahis to reach to Delhi, and once they reached, he was the one who broke the bridge so that the British could not enter from the Yamuna side. He was also the one who cut off all the communication between Meerut and Delhi so that nobody knew that Delhi had fallen for at least 7 to 8 days. However, he will again die because of deceit. All of them will be betrayed by the people who they trusted. Thereafter, Kanpur, Nana Sahib, we already know. Nana Sahib was not recognized under doctrine of lapse. He had even sent an envoy under Azimullah Khan to say that I swore loyalty to the British. I should be given my pension and I should be recognized as the next important Peshwa. However, as soon as the rebellion will start at Fatehgarh, which is nothing but Kanpur cantonment sector, rumors will start to spread. A drunk British officer will fire on Indian troop. All increased suspicion will in turn lead to the rebellion on 5th June 1857. And we know what really happened is that we will have the Arsenal standoff, then Sati Chaura Ghat, and thereafter Bibigarh. Then an interesting story comes out of what we call as Jagdishpur, which is Bihar sector. Here, Raja Kunwar Singh was already very angry with the British, how he had been deprived of his estate and his land. He was a zamindar of Jagdishpur. As soon as he will hear that the Sepoys had rebelled, he will very happily join them and reach Ara. Ara till today is still what is called a British established town. It has a mission school, it has a mission itself. So it has a jail, central jail also of Bihar. So Ara was thereafter captured by them. He will occupy then Azamgarh near Ara. However, that will not be anything major in this sector. He will have a battle with the British. He will succumb to his injuries. And later in 1966, today, Government of India released a stamp in his honor just as a form of current affairs to you. Other than this, the story of everything is more or less simple. By 14 September 1857, Delhi was already 6 columns of the DFF had come. 20th September, Delhi will be regained and the king will die in 1862, thereby completing the theatres. I hope here you can just learn the names. I've already made a table for you. Yashika, Neil, you know the story, you understand the implications. I hope that you're understanding the 2 types of discussions we've had today, right? You understand the 2 types of discussions we had today. First is the larger understanding of what caused it and what is the nature. Other is all this history, right? Can we now just take 1 minute to understand why it failed, and then we break for today. Tomorrow we'll start from this point forward. Can we do that, everyone? I hope you're at least finding this interesting, and I told you that the story will change now. Now no Fact. It will become more and more interesting now. Okay. Now, with regards to suppression, you already know the answer to the question why it failed. You already know the answer to the question why it failed. So see, certain classes and groups did not join and actually worked against the revolt. Tell me who would they be? Crown will get involved once they will take over every theatre. Very good. Zamindars, elites, certain regiments, the people who are now you understand why I gave you that reason there. Every reason I've given you is also connected to failure. So the whole logic of the lecture is also like this, that everything you already know. So zamindars acted like breakwaters to the storm. So basically, if the storm was gathering, the zamindars used to suppress it. Moneylenders and merchants suffered the wrath of the mutineers badly, so therefore they wanted to protect British patronage. So if you have anything to actually get out of the British, you protected the British. Limited territorial spread, basically all the theatres are in North India. Lack of complete nationalism, no concept of nation, or it's only about restoring the power back. No common goal. Nobody knew what they wanted. British had better equipment, that always they have. Lack of coordination. There is no coordination between theatres. Sepoys, except for Delhi, were very poorly organized. No vision after the mutiny. Yes, we did what we did. Now what? You can't rule India or cannot create India just by adding Delhi, Kanpur, Jagdishpur, Lucknow. That is not India. You have to have proper control. You have to fully remove the British. They did not have a common plan of action, did not have centralized leadership. More than that, the modern educated elite stayed away from all of this. They said that this is not India. And basically only 1/4 of total area and not more than 1/10 of the total population was actually affected. South, nothing. West, nothing. East, a little bit. East, a little bit. Central India, again, little bit. Now, before we leave, I've already discussed with you nature and character. I will discuss with you again tomorrow. I wanted to pose a very important question to you. I'll start from this thing again tomorrow. I want to pose a very important question in front of you. What is the answer to the question on the screen? No. Nothing was planned. But I'll tell you one thing here, very important. The British thought it was planned. What is common to Bahadur Shah Zafar, Bakht Khan and others is that somehow the British thought that this was a Muslim conspiracy. Though one of the most outstanding feature was Hindu-Muslim unity, which is that no one ever fought against each other. The fact that in every theater, Hindus and Muslims came together and rebelled. But basically the British will think that what is common is that a Hindu Sipahi met with Bahadur Zafar, means a Hindu and Muslim were together. So in the mind of the British, it was a Muslim conspiracy. And this is why Sir Syed Ahmad Khan will put in a lot of effort to show to the British, no, it's not a Muslim conspiracy. Nothing was planned. It's not a conspiracy. But this is here is where the British will understand how to break India. They will realize that if we divide them and rule them, they will never come together, and a revolt of 1857 will never happen again. So now when we come back tomorrow, we'll talk about the nature again. I'll reiterate that point. We'll understand the implications of the revolt of 1857, the significance as it is called, which is nothing but crown rule itself. We'll talk about the White Mutiny, an interesting event which happened after the taking over of the crown. But tomorrow we'll start a new discussion, which is nationalism. What is called early nationalism, with regards to what is called early nationalistic bodies. Done? So now we are slowly but surely going to move towards independence, bit by bit. Perfect. Thank you. I hope you got a new understanding and insight at least about 1857. And I've tried to give you actually an optional level understanding of 1857, much more optional, because what was common was they're mostly Muslim leaders, so they thought it was a Muslim conspiracy. Bahadur Zafar Mughal concept. So I will see you tomorrow, same time.